Hi everybody, thank you very much for coming along today to hear and see about our book, which we're very excited about. We've put a lot of love into this book. Okay, so I'll just fill in a little bit more about me. So yes, I have been teaching for 28 years, believe it or not. I have been a QCAA panellist for Maths A and Maths C. I was involved in the external trial for the Maths B. In the first trial I was a marker, and in the second trial I was a senior marker. I have been a middle leader for 20 years, so I've seen all of those variations. So I've been a maths coordinator, I've been a head of department, I've been a year coordinator, and in my current role I am a curriculum leader of mathematics at Downlands College, and I've been at Downlands for 10 years at the moment on my latest run. This is my first experience of writing, and it's been a very rich experience. I've really enjoyed it. I've challenged myself, I've learnt a lot about myself, I've met some wonderful friends, colleagues, and it's a really great team. It's a really great team. The other exciting thing about me is I also teach pre-vocational maths. So I am a teacher of pre-vocational maths. This is my Year 12 class, and they're very excited to be part of this team as well. So you can probably tell there's a lot of love in our group. There's a few interesting characters. The teacher aide here probably gives us an idea about what sort of group of kids we have. They're quite passionate about their music, their sport, and sometimes you think you'd be better off tapping in their headphones to actually get them to hear you. But I know about them, and so do all the other writers. We all are teachers of pre-vocational maths. So what sort of things would we expect from our essential maths students? Well, they're probably largely going to be non-ATAR students. We're probably going to have a high number of them with learning difficulties, like we have with our pre-vocational maths kids at the moment. Probably expect high numbers that do SBA or go to TAFE, do those sort of traineeships, and certainly in my class photo, my whole class isn't there. I had 2 girls off at TAFE that day. I never have my whole class there, and I imagine that would be pretty much the same experience for everybody else, so wouldn't be there. One of the things that I'm probably find disappointing, or it's a challenge that we've got, QCAA are expecting really large numbers of students to be taking up this course, but they're also predicting that half of the students will be taught by teachers that aren't maths specialists. That it'll be the PE teacher who's got the one essential maths class, that it'll be, you know, somebody from another area. And looking around the room, I'm thinking that's certainly the experience of probably a lot of us in our schools. I really recommend, if you're a head of a department or an experienced teacher, get in there and have a go one year. I have loved that class. They give me so much joy, and I've got the experience and the background of being the Maths C teacher. For the last 3 years I've had the Year 12 Maths C class, and they have done extremely well, and that's my reputation. But having that class, they've loved it. You know, they feel very special, very honoured that the head of maths, the person who's writing the textbook, is taking that class. And they'll see me in the yard and they'll say, "Hey miss, see you in Maths C period 3, because they're excited about it. Yeah, and that's our teacher. So I would really say, if you haven't done it for years, have a go, because it takes you back to your roots of teaching, and those kids really need it. You know, they're our vulnerable kids. One of those boys, the boy that was sitting beside me, he's a really keen rugby player, and he actually said to me in class one day, as I was slowing it right down, and he goes, "Miss, we're not stupid." And I went, "That's a really good point. They're not stupid. They might have learning difficulties. They could be a little lazy. They could be a little disorganised. They're probably a bit distracted by their SBA or their rugby career, but they're not stupid." And we've taken that in heart when we're writing for these kids. So we are aware that they've got learning difficulties. They might be challenged by who's teaching them, that teacher might not have a great maths background. But, you know, we need to give those kids that respect. they still deserve it. So here's the author team. This is us. So we got together. And so we've got Deborah here. So this is Scott from Cambridge. This is Jenny Vaughan, who is one of the editors. And Neil and Cassie are here, and they teach on the Sunshine Coast at Glasshouse Mountains High. We got together as a team and we discussed it. And we sat at that table for, I think, around 5 hours, maybe 4 hours. Maybe 5. It was a long time. And it was in a restaurant, and the restaurant was cleaning up around us. And Deb and I, at the end, were like, the car park is closing and we have to actually get back to Toowoomba. So we had to actually run from that restaurant. So there was a lot of passion that night about what it involves to have a pre-vocational maths class. We talked a lot about the sort of students that we have and what sort of needs that they have, you know, what exciting things are going to come out of this course. You can see that we took a whole heap of textbooks with us, a whole heap of current resources, and we looked through them and we went what we like and what we don't like and what we want to see in our book. And so you've got a book that is probably a bit different to your standard, we'll use the pre-vocational maths thing, but it's different to that because we wanted to treat our kids with respect. We don't want to treat them like they're stupid, but we want to actually provide them with a good opportunity. So the author team are all experienced teaching pre-voc. They're all very passionate, and some of them even struggled through school themselves. So they really know where these kids are coming from. So here we go. Set the tone for what we need to be doing. So probably the set plan is our first consideration with Year 10, what we need to be doing. So in the new syllabuses and the new QCE system, literacy, numeracy are requirements for a QCE. We all know that. Kids need 20 QCE credits to gain a Queensland Certificate of Education, but 12 of those credits need to come from their core subjects, whether they be general subjects like general maths methods or specialist, or applied subjects like ours, or even through some of their certs, whether they be 2s, 3s or 4s. The other thing is that QCAA are after the kids having a broad education. So that means that where you've got duplication of learning, only the higher of the qualifications will count. So for example, if a student does a Cert 2 in business and a Cert 3, then only the Cert 3 would count. So they all need a numeracy. So the way that you can gain a numeracy qualification, so clearly the standard maths courses, so our general and applied courses that we're all familiar with. You could do the short course in numeracy, getting a grade of C or better. There's this Cert 2 in skills for work, and you can also pass the examination. So those are the ways that you can gain a numeracy. So they're probably going to need to do a maths course. Up in here is probably where they're going to need to get it from, because to gain those credit points, you know, if they do that short course in numeracy here, it only gets them 1 credit point. So it's only 1. Whereas if you go and get through your applied maths, we can gain up to 4 credit points there. So while every kid will have their own situation, there are things that we need to keep in mind, that they're going to get enough credits from those areas to get there. And certainly at our school, we are offering the essential mathematics. We're at this point in time not going to be offering the short course. That's our decision. And we're making maths compulsory. Is our decision as well. And that's just a local decision at our school, because we see that literacy and numeracy are important. Okay, so QCAA have got the suite of subjects. We're all very familiar, I'm sure, with that slide. We've seen it a few times now. Cambridge has got, it's one of the publishers that's producing material for all 4. And I see that as actually something that's different in this new rollout than in other years. So in other years, you know, publishers have all put out stuff for Maths A, Maths B, Maths C, but they haven't addressed pre-voc, and there's been very little resources for pre-vocational maths. This time round, a few of the publishers, and Cambridge was one of the first ones with this on board, to say, we're doing the whole lot. And I really thank Cambridge for getting on board with that and backing it up. It's been terrific. Okay, so how is essential different to pre-vocational maths? So the rationale is a really great start point. They're different. So with pre-vocational maths, it was just really about numeracy. It was just about making sense of maths and just using it efficiently. That was really it. Whereas when we get into this essential maths, it goes way beyond that. There's a lot of problem solving in this course about making informed decisions. So it's not just about being efficient, it's about being informed. It's giving these kids some much better skills. SAS versus applied. So subject area specification was our pre-vocational one. While you could gain credit points towards your QCE, you couldn't use it towards an OP. I see this, that you can use one applied subject, in an ATAR calculation as a big plus for essential mathematics. I think a lot of those kids that may have done Maths A in the past may very well end up taking on this course as a viable course for them towards an ATAR if they want it. Subject matter, so pretty much standard with the strands, number, data, location, but the schools designed their own courses and some of them were, it was pretty loose. But here we've got a lot more direction in our subject matter and a huge increase in data. Massive amount more data in there, and if you've read through the syllabus you'd be familiar with that. Why would they include data? So here's a little example. So me as head of department, one of my little roles is I need to make sure that we've got enough stationery in our stationery cupboard to function, and we like decorating our classroom, so a lot of our teachers are producing their own posters and laminating them and getting them up on the walls. We ran out of laminating pouches. So I Googled to the stationery company that our purchasing officer uses, found my A3 laminating pouches, did a screenshot, produced a purchase order, sent it off to Robin, said, can you please buy me some of these? That's pretty standard sort of a day. That evening, I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed. So here we go, same day, 5:53 p.m. on my Facebook, having a little flick while dinner's cooking. Same company. I will hide the identity of said company, but it's the same company, and it's a suggested post in my Facebook feed. I love this. Did you forget something? While you were on our website earlier today, did you forget something? Here's our end of year financial year deals, and they're showing me a graphics calculator. Is that a coincidence? And that just happens to be the graphics calculator that we use at Downlands College. So the data, where our data is being collected all the time, and it's for these sort of purposes, to direct stuff back to us. So it's about giving these kids knowledge of what's happening and why it might be happening and how our data is being used and in what way. And is everything just a coincidence? When I was writing the chapter tests for the teacher resources, I'm doing the stuff on surveys and census, and I was doing lots of Googling, looking for survey results in the media was what I was looking for. The next morning, this rolls up in my Facebook feed. And I'm just amazed by this one. So Facebook and Google clearly have a loving relationship with each other. I love this one. They're looking for women in Australia. Okay, so here we go. There's our target population, one of the topics in Unit 2. There's our target population. Signing up's easy. You just click on that image, you register, and you're going to receive some free products and get rewarded for this. Do you think they're going to get some bias in that sample? Again, last chapter in the textbook, that is chapter 14, is talking about bias in our statistics. It is one of the complex topics, but this is how it looks, and that's why they've included so much data in the syllabus. It looks like this. You will notice when you get access to that, there's lots of screenshots from my phone in the textbook because I'm trying to keep it real life. This is what it looks like, okay? So it's not some made up data. It's not an artificial situation. This is real world and we're wanting these kids to be able to function in it. Okay, so the assessment is clearly different. So in pre-vocational maths it was just project based. You were discouraged from running an exam, but if you did so, please let them have access to their notes because we don't want to make it too hard for them. But in essential mathematics, I love this. So in every unit, there's a problem-solving task and a 60-minute exam. That exam, I'm hoping everyone's familiar with. The 3 criteria: simple familiar, complex unfamiliar. 80% of your exam in a 1-hour exam would be made up of simple familiar material and only 10% complex familiar and only 10% complex unfamiliar. To pass, they only need to pass the simple familiar material, which means they only need to get 40% on that exam. That's it. It is achievable. It's very much achievable. There would be one common internal assessment task written by QCAA for Unit 3, so we all do the same test, but everything else is done. And there is a common formula sheet, which again we're using. So on to our beautiful book. Okay, so clearly we consulted with QCAA and teachers and students, our students. We consulted with kids, real kids, and they said they're not stupid. We don't want to be treated like we're stupid. We don't want stupid cartoons in our book. We don't want artificial themes. We want real stuff. We don't want dumb words or big long sentences. They said that. They didn't want big long sentences, so small sentences. Not too many words, but don't make it babyish. That was very clear, okay? We used the syllabus, and I brought mine along. So I've clearly well used this document, and all of the authors could have done exactly the same thing. There's post-it notes and rubbish right through it. And inside here is the business card of Leanne Pham, who is the Principal Education Officer for Mathematics, and I think he has me on caller ID and he knows who I am, well and truly. Hi Leanne, you're on again. But anyway, we've really consulted, we've really used the syllabus, we've stuck to it really closely, and you will notice in the table of contents that we follow it. We've really followed the syllabus incredibly closely. We really did try and get lots of numeracy and clearly lots of numeracy in. Literacy we've incorporated in the textbook as well, and I'll take you through some of that as well. So you will notice in your welcome pack you have got a sample. It's chapter 1, it's our uncorrected thing, so there are mistakes in it, but just as a little example, I'll take you through some of it. So there's 4 components to the textbook. There's clearly the print book that we've written, there's the downloadable PDF, there's the online interactive, and there's the online teaching suite. I'll take you through what's in the print book and how we put it together and why we did what we did. And BJ, you get the other 3, mate. I'll take 1. Okay, at the start of every chapter is a double-page spread. This is a beautiful thing that we've put in. So this came about because I think it was Deborah talked about how she brings past students back to talk to her kids about what they do in their jobs. And so we thought that was a really great thing to do because we ultimately want these kids engaged in our community. We want them getting jobs. We want them to feel inspired about jobs that it's possible for them to get. So at the start of every chapter, there's this little section and it's Maths for A. And so this particular one here is the Maths for a Landscape Gardener. We've got Maths for a hairdresser, Maths for a real estate agent, Maths for a mechanic. Like there's women, men, younger people, a chef, and we were really lucky. And Will Power, who won the Indy series and is race IndyCar driver, he's done one of them as well for us, chapter 4. And he's talked about what he did at school, how he's become an IndyCar racer. Everyone who has been involved in this has been, wow, I'd love to be involved in that. It's really important that kids know that I'm using maths in what I do. It's not only that, it's essential to what I do. So we talk about, tell me a bit about your job, what does a day look like, what maths did you do at school, how do you use maths in your job, and there's some examples of what they really do. So these have been a real labour of love for us. They're our friends, our neighbours. In the case of Will, a past student. So we've contacted a lot of people, brought a lot of people in, and resoundingly, everyone's really wanted to be involved. We've got the syllabus alignment there at the start of the chapter, so you know what we're covering. And you will find that that's a direct quote from the syllabus. And that's the same for every single chapter. Even, certainly I know in mine, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in everybody else's, these pretty much follow straight from the syllabus in order. We have pre-tests at the beginning of the chapter just to check in on our Peter 10 curriculum and see if there's any things that we might need to fix before we move on. So what sort of skills we need. When we get into each learning goal, each area, each topic matter that we get to. So we start off with clearly, explicitly stating our learning goals. They probably that hooks back to those TLAPs that have been produced by QCAA. So we're explicitly saying, here's our learning goal. This is what we're going to be doing in this section of work. To answer that question, the eternal question, when am I ever going to need this? And you can always say, why is this essential to me? So all of these, and you can see through when you flick through, that they're basically who, what, why, where, when would this be essential to me? And it places what we're about to learn in a context. Why is this essential? I love the name they gave this course. Yes. It's beautiful. Why is this essential? In green is what you need to know, and we tried to use simple sentences, nice clear explanations of our facts that we need to know. So what you need to know, our examples, and if you're familiar with the Cambridge junior textbooks, you'll recognise the format for those examples are the same with working and thinking. So we've got some continuity of what happens in junior flowing into senior. And we're not treating our essential maths kids differently than we're treating our other kids. It's the same forum. On the online resources, and VJ will show us this, there's a video of every example. So every example there's a video the kids can access, and VJ will show you how that one works. When we get into a body of the exercise, looks like this. At the start of every exercise, there is a literacy activity where we've got a closed activity where we've just got to fill in the words. That links really closely back to the key ideas, just to force the kids back to reading it, fill in the missing words, a literacy link. The fundamental skills are integrated throughout the unit, so we've done that a little bit differently than some other books. We've gone with what the syllabus says. The fundamental skills are to be integrated through the topics, and that's what we've done. So we've followed the syllabus's recommendation. I found it interesting on the new version of the syllabus that came out last week that the objectives for each of the units changed. They took out those testing of fundamental skills. They're basically going to be testing the fundamental skills through the topics. So we've got our basic skills, so we have, and we've graded them. So this is first page proof, so it's not in its final version, but you will find that when the final book comes together, that it'll be like the other ones with the band, the simple, familiar, complex, unfamiliar. So the grading of the questions will be shown, and you can assign how you need to assign to the various questions. So there's a literacy, degree of difficulty, and we've got hints in the margins and links back to the example. So we can say, well, this is like that example back at the start. Rather than going for a theme approach, and that was indicated in the syllabus about having it contextualised in an overriding theme for a topic or a unit, we decided not to do that. So rather than just saying, for example, ratios, rather than making up a big wide theme for a whole topic, ratios in the garden, we've got, in this particular one, we've got ratios on a farm, we've got ratios at a fish and chip shop, we've got ratios in the garden using the two-stroke mower. So multiple contexts, all real life, everything's contextualised, but multiple contexts is the approach. And I think that, in fact, I know that fits really well. We've seen we've seen examples of the test papers produced by QCAA. You know, it flows. You're never going to pick the same theme that they're going to produce it for, so you need to expose the kids to lots of different contexts rather than just the one. So digital technologies clearly needs to be shown. That's a syllabus quote there. The technologies we've used, and we've got it as much as we can. Lots of Excel, lots and lots of Excel. I'm writing the simulations and probability for the second textbook, and there will be lots of Excel. There will be guaranteed there, as well as practical simulations, rolling dice and stuff like that, but expect there to be technology there. It has to be. In the producing of graphs, we've used Excel, and we've got the other ones as well. So lots of Excel for graphing, calculations, simulations, and we'll be using the online calculators for the finance in Unit 4. And we're using the TLAPs as well, that everybody else is using. Again, this is an idea from one of our authors. This is Cassie's brainchild. So when we get to the end of a chapter, rather than having a summary, it's a checklist. Putting it back on the kid. So, and I'll just read the first one. So it's got here, I understand the fundamentals of ratios and their relationship with fractions. And this is what it might look like for that goal. So not only have we said what our goals were, what it might look like, what a question would look like on that. Okay? We've also identified where our complex subject matter is, and that will happen also with the exercises. We have our complex subject matter indicated, because you may find that you have students that you might not even bother teaching the complex subject matter to, but just really focus on that simple familiar material. Get them their 50% on that, they've passed, they're over the line. When we get to the chapter reviews, so they're quite extensive, and we've used the same terminology as the syllabus. So we've got our simple familiar, complex familiar, our complex unfamiliar. We're very proud of our problem solving and modelling approach in this book. So for every single chapter, there is a problem solving and modelling task in the chapter. For every single one, there's also an additional problem solving and modelling task in the teacher resources for every single chapter. We've mirrored the same approach as QCAA have done, and we've added scaffolding, because they're designed to be a teaching tool, these ones. So they're a guided problem solving and modelling task to teach the children how to approach a problem solving task. Okay, so we've got it all scaffolded all the way through. They're all a real life scenario, and they're achievable in one lesson in most cases. That was the objective of that. I'm loving the problem solving and modelling approach, and I'll just show you this. This is something I'm doing with my class at the moment. So I've got, in addition to my Prevox, I've got a Year 10 general maths class, so they're pretty low level. They'll be heading towards general mathematics next year. We're at the moment doing Pythagoras and trigonometry, and I don't know about you, but you get crazy answers back with the kids. Or they'll go fine while ever it's just a really standard triangle, but as soon as they've got to draw something, do something with it, I'm not doing that. So this is my little approach, and I've tried it this is brand new. Last week was my first time I had a go at it, and I'll show you a slide in a minute where I've used it. But the approach is this. So I've got laminated little cards. I've got a little magnet on the back of it. I can stick it on my whiteboard. So I've got the 4 stages. That little magnet, if you want something for free, use the one from your real estate agent that's dropped it in your mailbox. So I just chopped it up, and I've used my laminating pouches that they got me at school. Okay, so here we go. So at school, so here we are. This is my Year 10 General Maths class. I've got an example from the Cambridge Essential Maths Year 10 Gold. We are applying Pythagoras' theorem. I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard to read. So we've got 2 flagpoles. They're 15 metres apart, and the rope links the top of the 2 flagpoles, of both poles. So here we go. Got our poles, they're 15 metres apart. We need to find the length of the rope if one flagpole is 9 metres and the other's 29 metres. So I'm using a little bit of exam technique. I've highlighted the stem of the question, what I need to do. I need to find the length of the rope. So now we're going to formulate. So we go through our system. I'm going to add an extra line in there. I'm going to make it a right angle. I'm going to mark some extra sides in. So if that one's 9, that's 29. I've got 20. I've got my 15 transferred, and I've labelled my sides. And I've identified it's a right angle triangle. So if I use Pythagoras' theorem, I have ticked that box. I have now formulated my problem. I clearly understood what I do. So now I'm up to solve. I now do my mathematics, okay, and I'm really getting fussy with these guys. I'm making them substitute directly in, even if they've got to find a side rather than a hypotenuse. Like, we're only going to get that formula on our formula sheet. We're not going to get b squared equals c squared minus a squared. We're only going to get that one. So we're only ever going to use this one and substitute into it. Then we're going to manipulate and rearrange. So we're going through, we find our answer. This is my favourite step of the whole thing. Evaluate and verify. Is that a sensible answer? So I've got an answer. It's come in at 25 metres. Okay, is that sensible? Well, I know that side's 20, that side's 15. Mrs. Butler's told me that the hypotenuse needs to be the longest side in all right angle triangles. And what do you know? It is the largest side, so it's probably a good answer. Good. Now I can write my conclusion. And this is also a great step because it's making the kids use their manners. Okay? They gave me a question in words. It's a literacy activity. So I'm going to use my words and my manners and give my answer back in the form it was given to me. The rope is 25 metres long. I had to find the length of the rope. I answer the question. I don't just write 25. I write a sentence. Really simple. And I know that that's it's a familiar context for the kids, but if we can model that really simple problem-solving approach in a simple, familiar situation, when we get to something that's unfamiliar, they can just transfer that skill. So that's been really simple, really brilliant. My kids are feeling really confident with it. Some of the kids I'm noticing are actually writing those 4 things down as they're going with all of their Pythagoras questions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they go on the test with this one because we've done it a little bit differently. Okay, and that is me. So thank you very much for listening.